Okay. Well, we might have to just, I don't know, we might have to just do this in two parts. Is this even working? Man, YouTube is having some issues today. Is it YouTube or is it me? Let's see. Sound check. Are you there? Some issues today. Is it YouTube or is it me? I don't know. Let's see. I know the sound is working. That much I do know. Huh. Well, it might be one of those times where we've just got to do it in the two-parter. It happens. But the weird thing is I don't know. It's like the other one's still live, but it's just in limbo. It's like locked in the void or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that one. Let me look and see. Yeah, what the heck is going on? And I had this happen like one time a while back, and then when I tried to restart it, YouTube said you can your other video ended unexpectedly. Do you want to resume it? So I said, yeah. But it's like I don't know why it's not giving me that option this time. But either way, that's a bit of a pain in the butt for all involved. So if anything, let's take this lesson from it, that those tarot cards weren't messing around. We really got to work for it today, huh? Oh well, I guess I don't know. I guess worst case, if it all is real too choppy and real too sucky, then we will go ahead and maybe just re-record this one. That would make it that would mean we're really working for it, but I think for the time being we might still be able to kind of pull it off. Or I could potentially do the thing where I download them and stitch them together. I don't know, but I'm going to go ahead and just get right back into reading. And sorry about that again, everybody. Okay, so I know I read that footnote, but just in case, let's see. Well, we'll go back up here. Yeah, I think I had finished the footnote and then it went out. But we'll reread it anyway. So on this footnote about the word, it says it should be understood that for Eliphas Lévi, the word is reason, the supreme reason of God and logical understanding in man. The incarnation of God in Christ was the sovereign reason manifested in earthly life and time. Intelligence is eternal, and the life of intelligence is the Word. The Word manifests by creative activity, which produces form. It is clothed with human form, and when this becomes the vestment of the Word and its exact expression, it is said that the Word is made flesh. Okay. So it was saying, in the opinion of Christians, the scientific and magical clavicles of Solomon are lost. Notwithstanding, it is certain that, in the domain of intelligence ruled by the word, nothing that has been written can perish. Whatsoever men cease to understand exists for them no longer, at least in the order of the word, and it passes then into the domain of enigma and mystery. Furthermore, the antipathy and even open war of the official church against all that belongs to the realm of magic, which is a kind of personal and emancipated priesthood, is allied with necessary and even with inherent causes in the social and hierarchic constitution of Christian sacerdotalism. The church ignores magic, for she must either ignore it or perish, as we shall prove later on. Yet she does not recognize that the less that her mysterious founder was saluted in his cradle by three magi. That is to say, by the hieratic ambassadors of the three parts of the known world and in three analogical worlds of occult philosophy. In the school of Alexandria, magic and Christianity almost joined hands under the auspices of Ammonius Saccas and of Plato. The doctrine of Hermes is found almost in its entirety in the writings attributed to Dionysius the Areopagite. Synesius outlined the plan of a treatise on dreams, which was annotated subsequently by Cardan, and composed hymns that might have served for the liturgy of the Church of Swedenborg, could a church of the illuminated possess a liturgy. With this period of fiery abstractions and impassioned warfare of words, there must be connected also the philosophic reign of Julian, called the apostate because in his youth he made unwilling profession of Christianity. He is described elsewhere as a misunderstood spiritualist whose paganism was less idolatrous than the faith of some Christians. In his hymn to the sun, he recognized that the day star is but the reflection and material shadow of that sun of truth, which illuminated the world of intelligence and is itself only a gleam borrowed from the absolute. It is said also that Julian's ideas of the supreme God were far grander and more just than those of many fathers of the church who were his contemporaries and adversaries. From La Clef des Grands Mysteries. Everyone is aware that Julian had the misfortune to be a hero out of season of Plutarch, and that he was, if one may say so, the Don Quixote of Roman chivalry. But what most people do not know is that he was one of the illuminated and an initiate of the first order, that he believed in the unity of God and in the universal doctrine of the Trinity, that, in a word, he regretted nothing of the old world but its magnificent symbols and its too gracious images. Julian was not a pagan, he was a Gnostic, allured by the allegories of Greek polytheism, who had the misfortune to find the name of Jesus Christ less sonorous than that of Orpheus. The emperor paid in his person for the academical tastes of the philosopher and rhetorician, and alter and after, that's what it is, it's smudged out. And after affording himself the spectacle and satisfaction of expiring like Epamin, Epaminondas with the periods of Cato. He had, in public opinion, by this time fully Christianized, but anathemas for his funeral oration and a scornful epithet for his ultimate memorial. Okay, and welcome in to those of you popping in. Dr. Pepper Army, what's up? Welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Mrs. 405, are you reading the Bible? No, I did that over the weekend though. You can go find I did a reading on the Song of Solomon. But today I'm reading about magic and Harper's World. Hello. I hope you're having a great day. All right then. I'm having a day where I got to really work for it. That's the type of day I'm having, but that's all right. No big deal. Let us pass over the petty minds and small matters of the Boss Empire and proceed to the Middle Ages. Stay this book. Glance at the 7th page, then seat yourself on the mantle which I am spreading, and let each of us cover our eyes with one of its corners. Your head swims, does it not? And the earth seems to fly beneath your feet. Hold tightly, and do not look right or left. The vertigo ceases. We are here. Stand up and open your eyes, but take care before all things to make no Christian sign and to pronounce no Christian words. We are in a landscape of Salvator Rosa, a troubled wilderness which seems resting after a storm. There is no moon in the sky, but you can distinguish little stars gleaming in the brushwood, and may hear about you the slow flight of great birds which seem to whisper strange oracles as they pass. Let us approach silently that crossroad among the rocks. A harsh funeral trumpet winds suddenly, and black torches flare up on every side. A tumultuous throng is surging round a vacant throne. All watch and wait. Suddenly they cast themselves on the ground. A goat-headed prince bounds forward among them. He ascends the throne, turns, and assuming a stooping posture, presents to the assembly a human face, which everyone comes forward to salute and to kiss, their black taper in their hands. With a hoarse laugh, he recovers an upright position, and then distributes gold, secret instructions, occult medicines, and poisons to his faithful bondsmen. Meanwhile, fires are lighted of fern and alder, piled up with human bones and the fat of executed animals. Druidesses, crowned with wild parsley and vervain, immolate unbaptized children with golden knives and prepare horrible love feasts. Tables are spread, masked men seat themselves by half nude females, and a bacchanalian orgy begins. There is nothing wanting but salt, the symbol of wisdom and immortality. Wine flows in streams, leaving stains like blood. Obscene advances and abandoned caresses begin. A little while, and the whole assembly is beside itself with drink and wantonness, with crimes and singing. They rise, a disordered throng, and form infernal dances. Then come all legendary monsters, all phantoms of nightmare. Enormous toads play inverted flutes and thump with paws on flanks. Limping scarabaei mingle in the dance. Crabs play the castanets. Crocodiles beat time on their scales. Elephants and mammoths appear habited like cupids and footed in the ring. Finally, the giddy circles break up and scatter on all sides. Well, shoot, this sounds like the book Naked Lunch. Every yelling dancer drags away a disheveled female. Lamps and candles, formed of human fat, go out smoking in the darkness. Cries are heard here and there, mingled with peals of laughter, blasphemies, and rattlings in the throat. Come, rouse yourself. Do not make the sign of the cross. See, I have brought you home. You're in bed, not a little worn out, possibly a trifle shattered by your night's journey and its orgy. But you have beheld that of which everyone talks without knowledge. You have been initiated into secrets no less terrible than the grotto of Tryphonius. You have been present at the Sabbath. It remains for you now to preserve your wits, to have wholesome dread of the law, and to keep at a respectful distance from the church and her. I'm not saying that word, not on YouTube. From the church and her consorts. Aiden GL6LR, what's up? Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you're having a great day. Would you care, as a change, to behold something less fantastic, more real, and also more truly terrible? You shall assist at the execution of Jacques de Molay and his accomplices or his brethren in martyrdom. Be not misled, however, confuse not the guilty and the innocent. Did the Templars really adore Baphomet? Did they offer a shameful salutation to the buttocks of the goat of Mendes? What was actually this secret and potent association which imperiled church and state, and was thus destroyed unheard? Judge nothing lightly. They are guilty of a great crime. They have exposed to profane eyes the sanctuary of antique initiation. They have gathered again and have shared the fruits of the tree of knowledge, so that they might become masters of the world. And this footnote, the purport of this accusation does not transpire. See, however, my translation of Lévi's History of Magic, second edition, 1922, and the chapter on Knights Templar, with the speculations of which may be compared, La Clef des Grands Mysteries, as follows. The very name and attributes of Masonry have reference to the rebuilding of the temple, that universal dream of Kabbalism. And here Lévi quotes appositely a dictum referred to a master. There is no true Israelite for whom the temple is not an edifice realizable immediately, for he rebuilds it in his heart. He goes on to suggest that the temple was therefore a social utopia and a symbol of perfect government founded on the democratic hierarchy of merit and intelligence. The Templars, initiated in the East into this doctrine, were veritable and terrible conspirators, whom popes and kings could not do otherwise than exterminate for the security of their own existence. As regards building in the heart, see the Masonic ritual of the Red Cross of Constantine. See also Werner's Son of the Valley for the betrayal of secret things by the Knights Templar. Okay. The judgment pronounced against them is higher and far older than the tribunal of pope or king. On the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die, said God himself, as we read in the book of Genesis. What then is taking place in the world, and why do priests and potentates tremble? What secret power threatens tiaras and crowns? A few bedlamites are roaming from land to land, concealing, as they say, the philosophical stone under their ragged vesture. They can change earth into gold, and they are without food or lodging. Their brows are encircled by an aureole of glory and by a shadow of ignominy. One has discovered the universal science and goes vainly seeking death to escape the agonies of his triumph. He is the Majorcan Raymond Lully. Another heals imaginary diseases by fantastic remedies, belying beforehand that proverb which enforces the futility of a cautery on a wooden leg. He is the marvelous Paracelsus, always drunk and always lucid, like the heroes of Rabelais. Here is William Postel, writing naively to the fathers of the Council of Trent, proclaiming that he has discovered the absolute doctrine hidden from the foundation of the world and is longing to share it with them. The council heeds not the maniac, does not vouchsafe to condemn him, but proceeds to examine the grave questions of efficacious grace and sufficing grace. He whom we behold perishing poor and abandoned is Cornelius Agrippa, less of a magician than any, though the vulgar persist in regarding him as a more potent sorcerer than all because he was sometimes a cynic and mystifier. And this footnote says, you are reading Agrippa and confess to a certain disappointment. Did it happen that you took him for a master? He was only a bold vulgarizer, and fortunately very superficial in his studies, never possessing the keys of the Sefer Yetzirah and Zohar. He was a brave, restless, and trifling soul. His work, however, is the first which did something to spread knowledge of the higher sciences. Too shallow for a magus, he was pleased to pass as a magician and a sorcerer. He is accused even of coining false money under the pretext of Hermetic science, and could scarcely do better, being ignorant of the natural philosophy of Hermes. This notwithstanding, his books are useful reading when one knows more and better than he did. What secret do these men bear with them to their tomb? Why are they wondered at without being understood? Why are they condemned unheard? Why are they initiates of those terrific secret sciences of which the church and society are afraid? Why are they acquainted with things of which others know nothing? Why do they conceal what all men burn to know? Why are they invested with a dread and unknown power? The occult sciences, magic, these words will reveal all and give food for further thought. De omni re scribili et quibusdum aleis. That's my best attempt at Latin. And Ronaldo, what's up, bro? Good to see you. I hope you're having a great St. Patty's Day, a great Tuesday. Always great to see you popping in. Okay, but what, as a fact, was this magic? What was the power of these men who were at once so proud and so persecuted? If they were really strong, why did they not overcome their enemies? But if they were impotent and foolish, why did people honor them by fearing them? Does magic exist? Is there an occult knowledge which is in truth a power and works wonders comparable to the miracles of authorized religions? To these two palmary questions we make answer by an affirmation and a book. The book shall justify the affirmation, and the affirmation is this: there was and there still is a potent and real magic. All that is said of it in legend is true after a certain manner, yet contrary to the common course of popular exaggeration, it falls below the truth. There is indeed a formidable secret, the revelation of which has once already transformed the world, as testified in Egyptian religious tradition, summarized symbolically by Moses at the beginning of Genesis. This secret constitutes the fatal science of good and evil, and the consequence of its revelation is death. And that footnote says, we may compare La Clef de Grand Mysterie. There is a dogma, a key, a sublime tradition, and this tradition, this key, this dogma are transcendent magic. There alone are found the absolute of science, the eternal base of law, defense against all superstition and all error, Eden of the understanding, repose of heart, and peace of soul. Moses depicts it under the figure of a tree which stands in the midst of the terrestrial paradise. According to Genesis, it was the tree of life which was placed in the center of the garden. is in proximity to the tree of life and is joined at the root thereto. At the foot of this tree is the source of the four mysterious rivers. It is guarded by the sword of fire and by the four symbolical forms of the biblical sphinx, the cherubim of Ezekiel. Here I must pause, and I fear that already I have said too much. I testify in fine that there is one sole, universal, and imperishable dogma, strong as supreme reason, simple like all that is great, intelligible like all that is universally and absolutely true, and this dogma is the parent of all others. There is also a science which confers on man powers apparently superhuman. They are enumerated thus in a Hebrew manuscript of the 16th century. Dope. And Ronaldo FJ says, I'm loving your consistency and frequency. Really appreciate all your efforts. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, man. I appreciate that a lot. Especially on a day like today where this whatever's going on with YouTube and all these hiccups on the stream. It's one of those days where you just part of you wants to say, you know what? I'm calling in. I'm calling in sick. But nah, because this one's good. So I want to bring it to you guys. Okay. So it says, hereinafter follow the powers and privileges of him who holds in his right hand the clavicles of Solomon, and in his left the branch of the blossoming almond. Aleph, he beholds God face to face without dying, and converses familiarly with the seven genii who command the entire celestial army. Bet, he is above all griefs and all fears. Gimel, he reigns with all heaven and is served by all hell. Dalet, he rules his own health and life and can influence equally those of others. Hey, he can neither be surprised by misfortune nor overwhelmed by disasters, nor can he be conquered by his enemies. Thou, he knows the reason of the past, present, and future. Zain, he possesses the secret of the resurrection of the dead and the key of immortality. Such are the seven chief privileges, and those which rank next are these: Het, to find the philosophical stone; Tet, to possess the universal medicine; Yod, to know the laws of perpetual motion and to prove the quadrature of the circle; Kaf, to change into gold not only all metals, but also the earth itself and even the refuse of the earth; Lamed, to substitute the most ferocious animals and have power to pronounce those words which paralyze and charm serpents; Mem, to have the Ars Notoria, which gives the universal science. Ars Notoria, did you guys forget about that? You remember there's other books than just the Ars Goetia, right? Of course you guys do. Of course you do. You guys wouldn't just only go to the Ars Goetia and not look into any other of that stuff. Of course not. Not over here. We don't play that game. All right, Noon, to speak learnedly on all subjects without preparation and without study. These finally are the seven least powers of the Magus. Samek, to know at a glance the deep things of the souls of men and the mysteries of the hearts of women. Oyen, to force nature to make him free at his pleasure. Pe, to foresee all future events which do not depend on a superior free will or on an undiscernible cause. Zadi, to give at once and to all the most efficacious consolations and the most wholesome counsels. Kuf, to triumph over adversities; Resh, to conquer love and hate; Sheen, to have the secret of wealth, to be always its master and never its slave, to enjoy even poverty and never become abject or miserable. And Tau, let us add to these three septenaries that the wise man rules the elements, stills tempests, cures the diseased by his touch, and raises the dead. But certain things have been sealed by Solomon with his triple seal. It is enough that the initiates know. As for others, whether they deride, doubt, or believe, whether they threaten or fear, what matters it to science or to us? Such actually are the issues of occult philosophy, and we are in a position to meet the charge of insanity or the suspicion of imposture when we affirm that these privileges are real. To demonstrate this is the sole end of our work on occult philosophy. The philosophical stone, the universal medicine, the transmutation of metals, the quadrature of the circle, and the secret of perpetual motion are neither mystifications of science nor dreams of delusion. They are terms which must be understood in their proper sense. They formulate the varied applications of one and the same secret, the several aspects of a single operation, which is defined in a more comprehensive manner under the name of the great work. Furthermore, there exists in nature a force which is immeasurably more powerful than steam, and a single man who is able to adapt and direct it might change thereby the face of the whole world. This force was known to the ancients. It consists in a universal agent having equilibrium for its supreme law, while its direction is concerned immediately with the great arcanum of transcendental magic. And this footnote says, it is described elsewhere, one, as a substance diffused through infinity, two, as that one substance which is heaven or earth that is fixed or volatile according to its degrees of polarization, three, as the great telesma of Hermes Trismegistus, four, as that which God created before all things when he said, "Let there be light," five, at once substance and movement, a fluid and perpetual vibration. It moves in virtue of an inherent force which is called magnetism. In the infinite, it is ether or ethereal light. It becomes astral light in the stars which it magnetizes. In organized beings, it is magnetic light or fluid. And in man, it forms the astral body or plastic mediator. The will of intelligent beings acts directly on this light and thereby on all nature. It is the common mirror of all thoughts and forms. The images of all that has been are preserved therein, and sketches of things to come, for which reason it is the instrument of thaumaturgy and divination. From La Clef de Grand Mysterie. That's interesting. He uses the words plastic mediator, and everybody's tripping out all the time about plastics, microplastics. We got microplastics in us. Oh no. Well, hey. And Ronaldo FJ says, I usually try and catch your lives the next day. No big deal at all, man. I appreciate when you can make it live, and I know the majority of people catch it on the replay. So no big deal. Honestly, that's probably how I would go to, knowing the way I stream them and knowing the way I am. Well, I would honestly probably do both, but that's just me. Um, I would probably catch it live, and then I would probably also wait until like the whole book is finished and then come back and just kind of knock it all out in one fell swoop. But again, that's just me. Everybody's obviously free to interact with it as they find most beneficial to them. All right, then. So he says, by the direction of this agent, it is possible to modify the very order of the seasons, to produce at night the phenomena of day, to correspond instantaneously between one extremity of earth and the other, to see, like Apollonius, what is taking place on the other side of the world, to heal or injure at a distance, to give speech a universal success and reverberation. This agent, which barely manifests under the uncertain methods of Mesmer's followers, is precisely that which the adepts of the Middle Ages denominated as the first matter of the great work. The Gnostics represented it as the fiery body of the Holy Spirit. It was the object of adoration in the secret rites of the Sabbath and the temple under the hieroglyphic figure of Baphomet or the androgyne of Mendes. All this will be proved. And that's even what Ophil said in Talismanic Magic, if you guys remember, where he was stressing the importance of the astral light, also known in the Eastern world as oh dang it, now I'm blanking. It's you guys know what it is. It's why can't I think of what it's called right now? Well, sometimes that happens. It'll come to me. Or maybe one of you will pop me and hit me in the chat. Here then are the secrets of occult philosophy. And such is magic in history. Dude, why can't I think of it? It's gonna bug me now. You guys know the one. All the elements together. What come together and they make the substance, the astrolite, but also it's on the tip of my tongue. I know it. Oh well, so see, we really do those tarot cards. They get you good. We really do got to work for it today, don't we? Let us glance at it now as it appears in its books and its acts, in its initiations and its rites. The key of all magical allegories is found in the tablets which we have mentioned, and these tablets we regard as the work of Hermes. About this book, which may be called the keystone of the whole edifice of occult science, are grouped innumerable legends that are either its particular translation or its commentary reproduced perpetually under 1,000 varied forms. Sometimes the ingenious fables combine harmoniously into a great epic which characterizes an epoch, though how or why is not clear to the uninitiated. Thus, the fabulous history of the Golden Fleece resumes and also veils the hermetic and magical doctrines of Orpheus. And if we recur only to the mysterious poetry of Greece, it is because the sanctuaries of Egypt and India to some extent dismay us by their resources, leaving our choice embarrassed in the midst of such abundant wealth. We are eager, moreover, to reach the Thebaid at once, that dread synthesis of all doctrine, past, present, and future. That, so to speak, infinite fable which reaches, like the deity of Orpheus, to either end of the cycle of human life. Extraordinary fact. The seven gates of Thebes, attacked and defended by seven chiefs who have sworn upon the blood of victims, possess the same significance as the seven seals of the sacred book interpreted by seven genii and assailed by a monster with seven heads, after being opened by a lamb which liveth and was dead in the allegorical work of St. John. So we heard a little bit about that from not Ophiel, from Manly P. Hall, just barely too, and how to understand your Bible, and especially when he was talking about at the end of that book, the revelation of St. John, the seven heads of the beast, the seven seals of the apocalypse. The mysterious origin of Oedipus, found hanging on the tree of Cithaeron like a bleeding fruit, recalls the symbols of Moses and the narratives of Genesis. He makes war upon his father, whom he slays without knowing. Prana, that's what it is. Prana. I knew it was gonna pop. I knew it was just gonna hit me. One of the Prana. That's the one. Astrolite, Prana. There you go. He makes war upon his father, whom he slays without knowing. Tremendous prophecy of the blind emancipation of reason apart from science. Thereafter, he meets with the Sphinx, that symbol of symbols, the eternal enigma of the vulgar, the granite pedestal of the sciences of the sages, the voracious and silent monster whose unchanging form expresses the one dogma of the great universal mystery. How is the tetrad changed into the duad and explained by the triad? In more common but more emblematic terms, what is that animal which in the morning has 4 feet, two at noon, and three in the evening? Philosophically speaking, how does the doctrine of elementary forces produce the dualism of Zoroaster, while it is summarized by the triad of Pythagoras and Plato? What is the ultimate reason of allegories and numbers, the final message of all symbolisms? Oedipus replies with a simple and terrible word which destroys the Sphinx and makes the diviner king of Thebes, one of those ones. The answer to the enigma is man. Unfortunate. He has seen too much, and yet through a clouded glass. A little while, and he will expiate his ominous and imperfect clairvoyance by a voluntary blindness, and then vanish in the midst of a storm, like all civilizations, which, each in its own day, shall divine an answer to the riddle of the Sphinx without grasping its whole import and mystery. Everything is symbolical and transcendental in this titanic epic of human destinies. The two antagonistic brothers formulate the second part of the grand mystery, completely completed divinely by the sacrifice of Antigone. And this footnote says the theory of Éliphas Lévi concerning the Greek mysteries was developed at a later period as follows. The mysteries of the ancient world were of two kinds. The lesser mysteries were concerned with initiation into the priesthood, while the greater mysteries initiated into the grand sacerdotal work, otherwise theurgy, that dread word with a double meaning, signifying the creation of God. In theurgy, the priest was instructed how he must make gods in his own image and likeness, producing them from his own flesh and animating them with his own blood. It was the science of evocation by the sword and the theory of sanguinary phantoms. It was in these that the person initiated had to slay his initiator. It was thus that Oedipus became king of Thebes in the killing of Laius. There was no initiation into the greater mysteries without effusion of blood, the purest and noblest included. It was in the crypt of the greater mysteries that Ninyas avenged the murder of Ninus upon his own mother. The furies and specters of Orestes were the work of theurgy. The greater mysteries were the secret tribunals of antiquity, in which the free judges of the priesthood modeled new gods out of the ashes of old kings, moistened with the blood of usurpers or assassins. La science d'esprit. It must be said that lesser or greater such explanations of mysteries are merely occult reveries, the prototype of which is to be sought in the German Kratarepoa, a system of pretended Egyptian initiation manufactured in the 18th century. See my new encyclopedia of Freemasonry, Egyptian Initiation Restored. The mysteries of Eleusis, of Bacchus, of Adonis were not seminaries of priesthoods. Okay. There follows the last war. The brethren slay one another. Capaneus is destroyed by the lightning which he defies. Amphiaraus is swallowed by the earth. And all these are so many allegories which, by their truth and their grandeur, astonish those who can penetrate their triple hieratic sense. Aeschylus, annotated by Balunki, gives only a weak notion concerning them. Whatever the primeval sublimities of the Greek poet or the ingenuities of the French critic. The secret book of antique initiation was not unknown to Homer, who outlines its plan and chief figures on the shield of Achilles with minute precision. But the gracious Homeric fictions replaced too soon in popular memory the simple and abstract truths of primeval revelation. Humanity clung to the form and allowed the idea to be forgotten. Signs lost power in their multiplication. Magic became corrupted also at this period and degenerated with the sorcerers of Thessaly into the most profane enchantments. The crime of Oedipus brought forth its deadly fruits, and the science of good and evil erected evil into a sacrilegious divinity. Men, weary of the light, took refuge in the shadow of bodily substance. The dream of that void which is filled by God seemed in their eyes to be greater than God himself, and thus hell was created. And Friendly Tag, what's up? Always great to see you as well. I hope you're having a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Or if you don't do St. Patrick's Day, then a wonderful Tuesday. When, in the course of this work, we make use of the consecrated terms God, heaven, and hell, let it be understood once and for all that our meaning is far removed from that which the profane attach to them, as initiation is remote from vulgar thought. God, for us, is the azote of the sages, the efficient and final principle of the great work. And on that footnote, it says, it came about that at a later period, Éliphas Lévi found it advisable to elucidate this statement, because he had been accused of worshiping with the chemical principle called azotic gas. He pointed out, therefore, that azoth was a term used by the learned initiate Basile Valentin to signify the universal agent, otherwise astral light. It is composed of the first and last Hebrew letter or the last letter in the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin alphabets. It symbolizes, therefore, beginning and end, the absolute in three worlds. Above science, it is God. In Kabbalistic philos- philosophy, it is the absolute. In occult physics, it is the universal agent. The word azoth expresses, therefore, three things. One, the divine hypothesis. Two, philosophical synthesis. Three, physical synthesis. In other words, a belief, an idea, and a force. If Lévi, however, is relieved of one absurdity, he assumes another, for he is open to the change of regarding the astral light as God. See La Science de l'Esprit. Returning to the fable of Oedipus, the crime of the king of Thebes was that he failed to understand the Sphinx, that he destroyed the scourge of Thebes without being pure enough to complete the expiation in the name of his people. The plague, in consequence, avenged speedily the death of the monster, and the king of Thebes, forced to abdicate, sacrificed himself to the terrible manes of the Sphinx, more alive and voracious than ever when it had passed from the domain of form into that of idea. Oedipus divined what was man, and he put out his own eyes because he did not see what was God. The grand word of the enigma of the Sphinx is God in man and in nature. He divulged half of the great arcanum, and to save his people, it was necessary for him to bear the remaining half of the terrible secret into exile and the grave. After the colossal fable of Oedipus, we find the gracious poem of Psyche, which was certainly not invented by Apuleius. The great magical arcanum reappears here under the figure of a mysterious union between a god and a weak mortal. Abandoned alone and naked on a rock, Psyche must remain in ignorance of the secret of her ideal royalty, and if she behold her husband, she must lose him. Here Apuleius commentates and interprets Moses, but But did not the Elohim of Israel and the gods of Apuleius both issue from the sanctuaries of Memphis and Thebes? Psyche is the sister of Eve, or rather, she is Eve spiritualized. Both desire to know and lose innocence for the honor of the ordeal. Both deserve to go down into hell, one to bring back the antique box of Pandora, and the other to find and to crush the head of the old serpent, who is the symbol of time and of evil. Both are guilty of the crime which must be expiated by the Prometheus of ancient days and the Lucifer of the Christian legend, the one delivered by Hercules and the other overcome by the Savior. The great magical secret is therefore the lamp and dagger of Psyche, the apple of Eve, the sacred fire of Prometheus, the burning scepter of Lucifer, but it is also the holy cross of the Redeemer. To be acquainted with it sufficiently for its abuse or divulgation is to deserve all sufferings. To know as one should alone know it, namely, to make use of and conceal it, is to be master of the absolute. A single word comprehends all things, and this word consists of four letters. It is the tetragrammaton, or the tetragram of the Hebrews, the azot of the alchemists, the thot of the Bohemians, or the tarot of the Kabbalists. This word, expressed after so many manners, means God for the profane, man for the philosophers, and imparts to the adepts the final term of human sciences and the key of divine power. But he only can use it who understands the necessity of never revealing it. Had Oedipus, instead of killing the Sphinx, overcome it, harnessed it to his chariot, and thus entered Thebes, he would have been king without incest, without misfortunes, and without exile. Had Psyche, by meekness and affection, persuaded love to reveal himself, she would never have lost love. Now, Love is one of the mythological images of the great secret and the great agent because it postulates at once an action and a passion, a void and a plenitude, a shaft and a wound. The initiates will understand me, and on account of the profane, I must not speak more clearly. Well, there you go. Love is the law. After the marvelous Golden Ass of Apuleius, we find no more magical epics. Science, conquered in Alexandria by the fanaticism of the murderers of Hypatia, became Christian, or rather concealed itself under Christian veils with Ammonius, Synesius, and the three pseudonymous author. Oh, my bad. There's no three. And the pseudonymous author of the books of Dionysius the Areopagite. In such times, it was necessary to exonerate miracles under the pretense of superstition and science by an unintelligible language. Hieroglyphic writing was revived. Panticles and characters were invented to summarize an entire doctrine by a sign, a whole sequence of tendencies and revelations in a word. What was the end of the aspirants to knowledge? They sought the secret of the great work, the philosophical stone, the perpetual motion, the quadrature of the circle, the universal medicine. Formulae which often saved them from persecution and hatred by causing them to be taxed with madness, but all signifying one of the phases of the great magical secret, as we shall show later on. This absence of epics continues till our Romance of the Rose. But the rose symbol, which expresses also the mysterious and magical sense of Dante's poem, is borrowed from the transcendent Kabbalah, and it is time that we should have recourse to this vast and hidden source of universal philosophy. Okay, take a little drink real quick, and then we're almost through with this intro. This book's going to have some where we're going to have some longer streams and then some shorter ones, especially because we're going to read it in the way of that it's meant to be read, where we're going to read the section of theory and the section of practice or dogma and ritual that match up with one another. And so some of those, from what I was looking in the table of contents, where some of them are going to be definitely a longer stream, and then some of them we might get through kind of quick, but I know nobody's really tripping on it, so we'll just move accordingly. The Bible, with all its allegories, gives expression to the religious knowledge of the Hebrews only in an incomplete and veiled manner. The book which we have mentioned, the hieratic characters of which we shall explain subsequently, that book which William Postel names the Genesis of Enoch, existed certainly before Moses and the prophets, whose doctrine, fundamentally identical with that of the ancient Egyptians, had also its exotericism and its veils. When Moses spoke to the people, says the sacred book allegorically, he placed a veil over his face, and he removed it when communing with God. This accounts for the alleged biblical absurdities which so exercised the satirical powers of Voltaire. The books were written only as memorials of tradition and in symbols that were unintelligible to the profane. The Pentateuch and the poems of the prophets were, moreover, elementary works, alike in doctrine, ethics, and liturgy. The true secret in traditional philosophy was not committed to writing until a later period and under veils even less transparent. Thus arose a second and unknown Bible, or rather one which was not comprehended by Christians, a storehouse, so they say, of monstrous absurdities. For in this case, believers involved by the same ignorance speak the language of skeptics, but a monument, as we affirm, which comprises all that philosophical and religious genius has ever accomplished or imagined in the sublime order. A treasure encompassed by thorns, a diamond concealed in a rude and opaque stone. Our readers will have guessed already that we refer to the Talmud. How strange is the destiny of the Jews, those scapegoats, martyrs, and saviors of the world, a people full of vitality, a bold and hardy race, which persecutions have preserved intact, because it has not yet accomplished its mission. And that's great. This was written way before World War II, also. So, boy, oh boy, that's just goodness gracious, what a life. Do not our apostolical traditions declare that after the decline of faith among the Gentiles, salvation shall again come forth out of the house of Jacob, and that then the crucified Jew who is adorned by the Christians will give the empire of the world into the hands of God his Father? On penetrating into the sanctuary of the Kabbalah, one is seized with admiration in the presence of a doctrine so logical, so simple, and at the same time so absolute. The essential union of ideas and signs, the consecration of the most fundamental realities by primitive characters, the trinity of words, letters, and numbers. And a footnote on that says, the science of signs begins with the science of letters. Letters are absolute ideas. Absolute ideas are numbers. Numbers are perfect signs. By combining ideas with numbers, we can operate on the former as on the latter and arrive at the mathematics of truth. The tarot is the key of letters and numbers. The 36 talismans are the key of the tarot. The test which explains talismans, letters, numbers, and the tarot is the Sefer Yetzirah. A philosophy simple as the alphabet, profound and infinite as the word. Theorems more complete and luminous than those of Pythagoras, a theology which may be summed up on the fingers. And right there's a footnote saying, the Zohar was available to Lévi only in scattered fragments and very imperfect descriptions. No account of Kabbalism could be more egregiously irrelevant than that of the text above, and as regards post-Zoharic forms, which drew from this source, we have only to consult the apparatus of Knorr von Rosenroth and the tracts of Isaac de Loria or Moses of Cordova, which follow in the same collection, to estimate the validity of a judgment which treatise to its philosophical simplicity and its luminous theorems. Okay, an infinite which can be held in the hollow of an infant's hand. 10 figures and 22 letters, a triangle, a square, and a circle. Such are the elements of the Kabbalah. Such also are the components of principles of the written word, reflection of that spoken word which created the world. All truly dogmatic religions have issued from the Kabbalah and return therein. Whatsoever is grand or scientific in the religious dreams of the illuminated, of Jacob Bohm, Swedenborg, St. Martin, and the rest, is borrowed from the Kabbalah. All Masonic associations owe it to their secrets and their symbols. The Kabbalah alone consecrates the alliance of universal reason and the divine word. It establishes by the counterpoise of two forces in apparent opposition the eternal balance of being. It alone reconciles reason with faith, power with liberty, science with mystery. It has the keys of the present, past, and future. To become initiated into the Kabbalah, it is insufficient to read and to meditate upon the writings of Reuchlin, Galantinus, Kircher, or Picus de Mirandola. It is necessary to study and understand the Hebrew writers in the collection of Pistorius, the Sefer Yetzirah above all. It is essential, in particular, to master the great book Zohar, to investigate the collection of 1684 entitled Kabbalah Denudata, especially the treatise on Kabbalistic pneumatics and that on the revolution of souls, and afterwards to enter boldly into the luminous darkness of the whole dogmatic and allegorical body of the Talmud. Okay, we got a pretty good footnote here on the Talmud. It is not to be supposed that the Talmud per se would have appealed to a mind like that of Éliphas Lévi, any more than Leviticus. It is not to be supposed that he had any real knowledge concerning it. In his only account of its content, his mistakes are egregious. He calls the Mishnah the Talmud of Jerusalem and identifies the Babylonian Talmud with the two Gemaras. But the work as a whole rests, in his opinion, on the great and immutable truths of the sacred Kabbalah. It does nothing of the kind, for the secret tradition in Israel is much later than Talmudic literature. Those who compiled the latter are distinguished by Lévi into three arbitrary classes: 1. The initiates; 2. Their vulgar disciples; 3. Blind preservers of texts, the absolute value of which they did not know. Levi's sense of evidence emerges in the manner that might be expected. If the Talmud had not been originally the work of initiates, that is to say, the great Kabbalistic key of Judaism, its existence and the traditional veneration of which it is the object would be incomprehensible. He adds, we know, moreover, that the body of this occult philosophy is positively what all serious initiates have considered the harmony of the Kabbalah. But a writer who terms the Talmud philosophy, occult or otherwise, has certainly not read the Talmud, and as regards the serious initiates, he quotes no names for the reason that there are none to quote. No one before Levi as indeed no one since ever dreamed of regarding the Talmud as a harmony of Kabbalism. Those who believe in the antiquity of the secret tradition in Israel account as they can for its absence in the Talmud, but do not pretend that it is there, unless indeed in some vestiges. After these unfortunate statements, the French Magus proceeds to consider the Mishnah, and because it is divided into 6 books, he allocates them to the 6 Sephiroth from Kether to Tiphereth, inclusive. Book 1 is entitled Seeds and is referred to the Supreme Crown, in the idea of which is contained that of the fructifying principle and the universal production. But this is nonsense, for it happens that in Kabbalistic metaphysics, generation resulted from the union of Chokmah and Binah. Book 2 treats of sacred things in which nothing must be changed because they represent eternal order. They belong, therefore, to Chokmah, which means wisdom. Book 3 treats of women and the family. It is in correspondence with Binah, otherwise understanding, for the curious reason that this Sephirah connects with liberty or creative power. Book 4 deals with crimes and their punishment, and must answer therefore to Giburah, severity, though the succession of Sephiroth is reversed in this manner. Book 5 is in analogy with Gedulah or Chesed, mercy, being dedicated to consoling beliefs and holy things. They might be ascribed as reasonably to Chokmah, which is Beneplacitum Termino Carens. In fine, Book 6 is under the auspices of Tiphereth or beauty, A, because it treats of purification, and B, because it contains the most hidden secrets of life and the morality which concerns it. It should be added that the Mishnah is a medley, and the content of its various divisions is not sharply distinguished in the manner suggested. Okay, that's quite the footnote there. Okay, we shall be then in a position to understand William Postel, and shall admit secretly that, apart from his very premature and overgenerous dreams about the emancipation of women, this celebrated, learned, illuminated man could not have been so mad as is pretended by those who have not read him. We have sketched rapidly the history of occult philosophy. We have indicated its sources and analyzed in a few words its chief memorials. The present division of our work refers only to the science, but magic, or rather magical power, comprehends 2 things, a science and a force. Without the force, the science is nothing, or rather, it is a danger. To give knowledge to power alone, such is the supreme law of initiations. Hence did the great revealer say, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent only shall carry it away. The door of truth is closed, like the sanctuary of a virgin. He must be a man who would enter. All miracles are promised to faith, and what is faith except the audacity of will which does not hesitate in the darkness but advances toward the light in spite of all ordeals and surmounting all obstacles? It is unnecessary to repeat here the history of ancient initiations. The more dangerous and terrible they were, the greater was their efficacy. Hence, in those days, the world had men to govern and instruct it. Oh, shots fired. Shots fired on the modern day. Yeah, because everybody wants to get initiated over TikTok. Everybody wants to pay some dude to be like, "Oh yeah, here you go. You're initiated. You're initiated now into these great mysteries," without actually having to do work, without actually having to go through ordeals. But hey, I mean, I don't know. Maybe somebody's doing it right, or maybe you could just go seek out the groups who still do it, and then you'll find out that they're doing it right. I'll tell you, I know for sure that from seeking out those types of groups, I've found out just how much nonsense there really is online. But hey, you're going to probably have to find out for yourself. Hence, oh, wait, I said that part. The sacerdotal art and the royal art consisted above all in ordeals of courage, discretion, and will. It was a novitiate similar to that of those priests who, under the name of Jesuits, are so unpopular at the present day, but would govern the world notwithstanding, had they a truly wise and intelligent chief. After passing our life in the search for the absolute in religion, science, and justice, after revolving in the circle of Faust, we have reached the primal doctrine and the first book of humanity. At this point, we pause, having discovered the secret of human omnipotence, and indefinite progress, the key of all symbolisms, the first and final doctrine. We have come to understood what was meant by that expression so often made use of in the gospel, the kingdom of God. To provide a fixed point as a fulcrum for human activity is to solve the problem of Archimedes by realizing the use of his famous lever. That this it is which was accomplished by the great initiators who have electrified the world, and they could not have done so except by means of the great and incommunicable secret. However, as a guarantee of its renewed youth, the symbolical phoenix never reappeared before the eyes of the world without having consumed solemnly the remains and evidences of its previous life. So also Moses saw to it that all those who had known Egypt and her mysteries should end their life in the desert. At Ephesus, St. Paul burnt all books which treated of the occult sciences. And in fine, the French Revolution, daughter of the great Johannite Orient, and the ashes of the Templars spoliated the churches and blasphemed the allegories of the divine cultus. But all doctrines and all revivals prescribe magic and condemn its mysteries to the flames and to oblivion. The reason is that each religion or philosophy which comes into the world is a Benjamin of humanity and ensures its own life by destroying its mother. It is because the symbolical serpent turns ever devouring its own tail. It is because, as essential condition of existence, a void is necessary to every plenitude, space for every dimension, and affirmation for each negation. Herein is the eternal realization of the Phoenix allegory. Two illustrious scholars have preceded me along the path that I am traveling, but they have, so to speak, spent the dark night therein. I refer to Volney and Dupuy, to Dupuy above all, whose immense erudition produced only a negative work, for in the origin of all religions he saw nothing but astronomy, taking thus the symbolic cycle for doctrine and the calendar for legend. He was deficient in one branch of knowledge, that of true magic, which comprises the secrets of the Kabbalah. Dupuy passed through the antique sanctuaries, like the prophet Ezekiel, over the plain strewn with bones, and only understood death, for want of that word which collects the virtue of the four winds and can make a living people of all the vast ossuary, by crying to the ancient symbols, "Arise, take up a new form and walk." But the hour has come when we must have the courage to attempt what no one has dared to perform previously. Like Julian, We would rebuild the temple, and in so doing, we do not believe that we shall be belying a wisdom that we venerate, which also Julian would himself have been worthy to adore. Had the rancorous and fanatical doctors of his period permitted him to understand it. For us, the temple has two pillars, on one of which Christianity has inscribed its name. We have therefore no wish to attack Christianity. Far from it. We seek to explain and accomplish it. Intelligence and will have exercised alternately their power in the world. Religion and philosophy are still at war with one another, but they must end in agreement. The provisional object of Christianity was to establish, by obedience and faith, a supernatural or religious equality among men, to immobilize intelligence by faith, so as to provide a fulcrum for virtue which came for the destruction of the aristocracy of science, or rather to replace that aristocracy then already destroyed. Philosophy, on the contrary, has labored to bring back men by liberty and reason to natural inequality, and to substitute wits for virtue by inaugurating the reign of industry. Neither of these operations has proved complete or adequate. Neither has brought men to perfection and felicity. That which is now dreamed, almost without daring to hope for it, is an alliance between the two forces so long regarded as contrary. And there is good ground for desiring it, seeing that these two great powers of the human soul are no more opposed to one another than is the sex of man opposed to that of woman. Undoubtedly, they differ, but their apparently contrary dispositions come only from their aptitude to meet and unite. No less is proposed, therefore, than a universal solution of all problems. The answer is yes, unquestionably, since we are concerned with explaining the philosophical stone, perpetual motion, the secret of the great work, and of the universal medicine. We shall be accused of insanity like the divine Paracelsus, or of charlatanism, like the great and unfortunate Agrippa. If the pyre of urban grandeur be extinguished, the sullen prescriptions of silence and of calumny remain. We do not defy, but are resigned to them. We have not sought the publication of this book for our own will, and we believe that if the time be come to bear witness, it will be borne by us or by others. We shall therefore remain calm and shall wait. Our work is in two parts. In the one, we establish the Kabbalistic and magical doctrine in its entirety. The other is consecrated to the cultists, that is, to ceremonial magic. The one is that which the ancient sages termed the clavicle, the other that which people on the countryside still call the grimoire. The numbers and subjects of the chapters which correspond in both parts are in no sense arbitrary, and are all indicated in the great universal key, of which we give for the first time a complete and adequate explanation. Let this work now go its way where it will and become what Providence determines. It is finished, and we believe it is to be enduring, because it is strong, like all that is reasonable and conscientious. Éliphas Lévi. All right. Woo. Man, we had to work for that introduction, but our hard work paid off, because then tomorrow we will go ahead and get into just that. We will get into the clavicle and the grimoire, starting with the first, with Aleph. He has it here as Aleph, as one. So that's going to be wonderful. Hopefully, we won't bump into those same technical difficulties, but we always find a way, huh? Magician type over here. All right, you guys. Well, I don't have much to add. We know the game plan. So then after tomorrow, then we'll do tomorrow's class, and then we'll get into class B, the Dhammapada. And yeah, that one's going to be quite a long introduction. That we might, in our 3 days to start class B, we might just spend all 3 days on that intro, but it'll be worth it. It's all going to pay off, because these books are going to certainly add to our arsenal of esoteric study and practice. So I appreciate you all, everybody who stuck with me through the technical difficulties today. And Sanjay Suba, what's up? Welcome. Too bad we're tapping out, but I appreciate you saying hello. So, this has been Jay Balvale. I will see you guys tomorrow. Much love and many blessings. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Wear some green, you know the drill, or go pinch somebody, or I don't know, just do whatever you want. Do what thou will, huh? All right, bye bye.